Happy evening, friends. Serious interviews with architects online. Today we are going to meet Mr. Devadas. He is a veteran architect. It's a happy evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. About yourself.
In brief, I'm an academician and practitioner. I graduated in the year 1979. I've done my master's in architecture and planning, as well as PhD. In fact, incidentally, I was the first PhD in architecture in the state. Yeah, and I've retired as Dean from School of Architecture and Planning, Anna University. Now I'm principal and also practicing architect of MEASI Academy of Architecture. Yeah.
When did you start your career?
Career, well, 79 I graduated. I worked for a couple of years in professional architect, and then I started to specialize in town planning. I graduated in 82. Then worked for a few years again with some architects in Chennai, and then I joined as a faculty in Anna University. So I just continued till 2017. So, I mean, that's my background.
So people wanted to grow in architect field itself. That is how you chosen this educational.
Well, I had an interest in architecture. While I was doing school, in fact, my brothers were doing engineering. So, in fact, my father also was interested in something different from engineering. So he said, "Why don't you try architecture?" Which I, liked it also. So I wrote an aptitude test. In fact, I think I stood second in the overall ranking.
Oh, super.
So that's how I got into architecture.
You are basically from Tamil Nadu or other?
I am basically from southern part of Tamil Nadu.
Oh, super.
So I am Tamilian by
Actually,
birth. Yeah, people from south do have this name of Monsingh and so on.
Then what is it in these 30 years? How traveled?
Yeah, actually. I've seen, I've traveled across India, length and breadth of India, as well as I've been abroad quite a few times. Twice on an exchange fellow I went. Once as a Rotary, sponsored by Rotary Foundation. I just went as a scholar under 35 category, under the age group of 35. And then later on, I was also a Fulbright fellow. That's one of the prestigious scholarship which I received. That was in 2012. That was for senior administrators Indian universities. So I was one of the 10 selected from India, all over the world. I mean, all over India. Yeah.
What is your experience with respect to Anna University? One of the most popular universities.
Yes, that's true. I don't know whether you are aware of, ours was the oldest department in, I should say, in South India. Started in 1957. And then, since it was one of the oldest, we have produced, the most of the leading architects in Tamil Nadu. And it has been a learning experience for me. Even today I keep learning. There is no end to learning, especially in architecture. With the advent of new technology, new materials, one has to keep on updating it. So there is nothing like you have learnt everything. You're just still halfway through only, I would say. Even with experienced architects, it's the same. You have to keep on updating yourself.
I think per year it will be around 30 to 40 students coming out from your colleges.
No, no. Now the scenario has changed. It was there was only about one college that was there in Tamil Nadu when we were studying. But today there are about 90 plus colleges offering architecture program. But many of them have started only just in the last few years.
Okay, when did you join here?
I joined here in this college after my retirement. Yes, after retiring from Anna University. In fact, I was offered in 3 or 4 places as the head of institution, but I chose to join this college.
So many students, I think popular students for you.
Yes, I know almost every other architect.
Few architects of your students.
No, I mean notably, the rupee designer. They say that rupee designer was from was my student, who is now teaching in IIT Guwahati.
Okay.
And then we have quite a few persons in civil services also, besides architecture, from my students. So
in Tamil Nadu, any famous architects?
Yeah, quite a lot of architects are there. Of course, there were some senior architects who studied elsewhere also, who were then practicing. But some of my students are Mukesh. One Mukesh is there. He has an office in Chennai and Salem. He's a very well-known architect. We have W. Anand, another architect. There are a lot of architects actually. These people are doing really well actually.
Okay, how was the industry, sir, as per your point of view?
Yeah, actually in architecture I would say there is zero unemployment. Everybody is having the skill by the time he finishes the course. Because the program is for 5 years. This architecture course is for 5 years. So of which 1 year is for training. They have to go out of the college. In the 4th year, they will work with an architect. And then come back and practice. So therefore, come back and do the final thesis. And therefore, by the time they finish their 5 years program, they are equipped with academically as well as the professional requirement. So therefore, many of them are confident to start their practice after they finish the 5th year.
So, apart from education, have you done any project practicing?
Yes. In fact, today I also work with my daughter. She's an architect. She has an office, and I'm also advisor to a few institutions. For their consultancy work, and also I do quite a lot of professional work also. Designing apartments, individual houses, that also I do.
Is there any specific projects?
Specific projects, in fact, I have done quite a lot of projects during my tenure, the last 33 years. In fact, I've done design townships, I've done apartments, I've done some resorts, and many houses. So including my own house, I have done it. So,
what are the challenges you are facing in the design of townships?
Township, well, it is a macro level kind of planning, not just a plot in which you design a house. So first thing is you need to know the some of the bylaws connected with the planning of a town. And some of the standards what you need to know in planning a town. And of course, this was a mini township for various income categories. So it was for a 10,000 population. So that was planned.
Sir, is there any changes between the theoretical part and the practicing part?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good question. See, one thing you should remember, people who teach should also be registered with the Council of Architecture. So we are all licensed architects also. Any teacher is also a licensed architect. So therefore, you are supposed to know what is happening in the practice. It's not just enough, you teach only. In fact, you take pride in, teaching what you practice. So therefore, we teach what is there in the field as well. So that way, we are also up to date, and students also are given the, both the theory and practice component. And in fact, to reinforce this, we also have the faculty from industry, that is from practicing field, to come and get involved in the design during the studio hours. So that way, in fact, there will be internal faculty members, then there will be totally from industry, people will be coming and, getting involved with the students. And therefore, it's a balanced mix of, both theory and practice also there.
Then coming to the material part, how we are mobilizing, that is identifying the new technological materials. Actually, you are into education sector.
Yeah.
So earlier, what are the materials? Everything.
Yes. Now it is. Now many of them are outdated now. Yeah. In fact, that is why I said, we need to constantly update ourselves by attending workshops, and whenever there is a new material coming in, there is a product demo. So you get to see what it is, and then you go for these exhibitions, that has been conducted, material exhibition. Whenever this new material that is coming up in the market, you find them there in the these exhibitions. So that's an opportunity for the architects to get themselves updated on the material, and we also try out these new materials in our project, in a small way to test the performance.
Are we allowing that suppliers to have a demo in our colleges?
Yes. In fact, we are encouraging, the product manufacturers to get involved with the, architects, especially the schools of architecture. Yeah.
How about the statutory norms? Are you teaching the statutory norms also?
Yes. They have a subject called professional practice, wherein they taught about the various, professional requirements, the scale of fees, etc. And there is again another, in every subject, for design, when they do a design apartment, then they get to know about the rules pertaining to apartment design. If they design a hospital, what are the rules, standards that are, required to design such facility. So the students are also knowing what are the requirements, standards that are to be followed in designing that.
How about your students, earlier students versus present students?
Actually, I should say that earlier students, we know them by name. Today, I can't, because of the number, sheer number, and this is the case everywhere. So the number of students are more today compared to what was there. When we were studying, there were only 20 students. So today it is 120 or 160 students per year. So you can imagine the, number of students who are involved, interacting with us.
I'm asking about their IQ level. How was the IQ level, sir, when compared to earlier? And
see, obviously, when you try to have too many number of colleges and more intake of students, definitely there is dilution of standards.
Okay.
I mean, this is a natural, phenomenon. So therefore, we can't really compare with those days. But then we do still have good students of, what we used to have in those days. I mean, this is my frank opinion.
Okay. See, actually, the architects are the creators of the world.
Correct.
That's why I'm asking how they are.
No, today also there are good students. I mean, good students. But I think personally, I feel that there were the students of yesteryears were working more hard, compared to the present generation. I guess this is the same in any profession, I think, any field. So I think, working hard is becoming lesser and lesser these days. Maybe because of the internet and other, facilities that are available today for them, communication facilities. So,
what about our industry in all over India?
well, actually, it's not bad actually, because as you know, India is a developing country, and therefore we need more of infrastructure and housing. And today the housing shortage is more than 2 million units. Besides, you have buildings that are becoming old, which has to be replaced and all that. Just the shortage alone is more than 20 million housing units. So there is definitely great demand for housing, therefore in all the other sectors as well.
Government has announced that satellite city. Have you got any proposal for the design of satellite city when you are into analysis?
No, we have two scenarios. One is satellite city that is promoted by the state government, and there are something called smart cities, which is being promoted by the central government. So we have, but I think 10 or odd smart cities that are being funded by the central government. But parallelly, we also have the satellite town being mooted by the state government.
As a veteran architect, have you suggested anything important things to government?
To
our government or?
Well, I was involved in the Energy Conservation Building Code, ECBC, for India. That is prescribing rating the building based on the energy consumption. So in fact, in developing the code for energy consuming buildings, we have brought out some norms. So I was involved in the development of Energy Conservation Building Code, and I was also in the state government constituted Heritage Committee. So I served there for nearly 7 years. So looking at the heritage buildings and prescribing the norms and what is to be followed for preservation.
In Anna University, you are the dean. In that time, what are the things you have done any updation?
Yeah, actually. I was there for 2 terms actually. Nearly 6 years I was dean. During that time, there was an increase actually in the intake from what was there as 80. We made it to 120 because the request came from the government, and therefore, we increased the student strength in order to accommodate rural students basically, because the fees are very less there, and the government wanted us to. That was the time when there was very great demand for architecture, about 10 years back or something like that. So the number of intake was increased, and there was a lot of development activities that was taking place, like we started to have an annex block, for the increased number of students, some extra classrooms, etc. And today it is completed. And also because of the increase in students, we also got funding from the state government. And today, during my time, we had the foundation laid for hostel for the students, both boys and girls. And today that was completed only for architecture students. So it's in the nearing completion. So there were a lot of foundation that was laid during my period for the improvement of the campus. And apart from that, I was also serving as estate officer for the entire university, meaning I was looking after the entire construction activity of the whole university, which included MIT campus. Crompet, yes.
Okay, how about this college?
I just joined, now it's going to be nearly it's about 1.5 years. So I'm just trying to get settled with the institution here.
So, as your experience about 33 years, What are all the awards you received so far?
Yeah, I've received a number of honors and awards. To start with, in 1988, I think, I was selected from among professionals within 35 years to visit USA.
Okay.
So I was one among the 5. I was selected in that, and then as I told you, I also completed my PhD, the first in the university. And also I was awarded as the best teacher award by the IST, Indian Society for Technical Education, for both Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry. And I was also honored by the Indian Institute of Architects, Tamil Nadu, as an honorable, they've awarded me the Honorable Teacher Award. And in addition, I've also received the Fulbright Fellowship, which is a prestigious one actually. And I had the honor of serving the university as a syndicate member twice, and academic council member. I was the chairman of board of studies for 6 years, wherein we formulate the syllabus for the affiliated colleges. So wherein I served as the chairman. So I had many contributions to the academic field that way.
How did you feel proud as an architect?
No, actually, it's
You are sending almost now it's almost 80 to 100 people.
no. Now here we have 4 batches, 160 intake here.
160. So yearly you are sending
About 20.
people. How proud about you?
No, actually, teaching architecture students is very interesting because it's not a repeat kind of subject. Every design is new.
Yes, sir.
Every student's work is different. So if you have 40 students in a class, 40 different students design we see. So there's never a repetition which makes you boring. So everyone does a different, yes, they do a different solution. Therefore, it is very interesting to see every time students coming out with the new solutions to the given problem. Supposing if you take a design of a hospital, then we have 40 different designs of hospitals given by the students. So that way, it is refreshing for us. Never we get tired with that.
How people can reach you, sir? See, somebody wants to have a design like that. How people?
Well, I have my phone number and all that. It's also there in the Google my this thing name. So they can contact me anytime. In fact, I also am also partnering with my daughter. She is running a firm called Aclear.
Oh, right.
So
Where is that office?
that's in Velachery.
That's it.
Yeah. So they can contact me over phone or mail or anything.
Recently, your government has changed FSI norms and all.
Yes.
So what about that?
Yes, new common building rules. For the entire state, it's going to be a common rule. Whether it is for a village or for a city, it's going to be the same.
What is your feedback about that?
I mean, it's there are advantages, disadvantages. The advantage being, you will have more of houses development coming in the outer of the city, the peripheral areas. There will be more, housing units that are likely to come. Apartments are going to come and all that. So the number of units produced or housing shortage will be reduced on one hand. But the other major problem is the services. Where do you have the sewer line, water line, infrastructure for these people? I mean, so which means you have to have underground concealed water lines, sewer lines, etc. for these developments, these townships or apartments, so which is very much lacking. So we need to have infrastructure in place before we allow these apartments to come up in smaller towns and villages.
As a veteran architect, what did you want to say your students and the younger generations?
Well, I think architecture is really an interesting course as a course, and as a professional, I think every day is a new day.
Yes.
Every project is a new project. Unlike engineers who have a reputation of the same work being done. So that way I think it's very refreshing and it's an enjoyable profession.
Okay, as an architect, what do you want to say the common people, general people?
Common people, I think I feel architects should employ the public should engage the service of architects if they want their houses to be constructed at a low cost and also in an efficient way. So that's what my message to them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. Yeah.